Chaim Beis, Volume 1, middle of chapter 162, page 325, 326 actually, 325. Maimer of Maseh, Discourse 41. So after explaining how Atzilus, the 10 spheres of Atzilus are a Mamutza interface to an existence of the divine, both in the creation, the process of creation, and in the process of awareness, that our idea, our understanding and awareness of the divine, and as well as our emotional feelings, that we have a feeling for the divine, transcendent, are possible because of Atzilus. So now, chapter 162, the Rasha brings it back to Torah, which was the beginning of the discussion. It was all an explanation. The whole Atzilus was coming to explain the Bira Inyan, to explain what the Medida, what Torah's role is in context of the others, in context of the Eiragvul and Eiragvul that we've been learning through these chapters. So he explained that Torah is also Mamutza, because both the creation of the world and the world's ability to reconnect to the divine comes through Torah. Torah is Chabras Eden Sofi elements. That's the expression. That's why Torah is called Derech, a path. A path is a connector. That's what a path is. It connects two locations. In this case, Darkei Hashem, even Archen Daraisa, as the Zohar says. Shomru Derech Hashem. The connection between Azchabus of a connector that connects and combines two different areas. To explain this, he began with the Zohar. Takov Araisa Baral. Kutshabrichu is the way Atzma said so, the way the divine is legal, essentially, removed beyond existence. Takov Araisa looks into Torah, he appears into Torah. Takov, we know, is more than just a look. Takus is a ear. Doesn't mention that here yet, but it's, and that means that's how he, what do we say, reduces, not reduces, focuses, that whole Likus now focuses in this thing called Torah. And the Esses spheres are a focus that directs the energy in through the 10 spheres. They become the channel. The Torah is the focus. That's what it says. The Torah Madbila Sa'ed. Explaining what the Torah means, Madbila, Torah is Madbila. Immediately jumps out of the Torah is like you said, Rucham Eretz Midah had no limits. He doesn't ask this, but he explains because Torah comes from Chochmah. Chochmah is fundamentally an Pnimi, an integrated energy, structured energy. We're not talking about now diminished or anything. We're talking about internalized. There's a structure. As he says, in Pnimi itself, what the epitome of integrated, internalized, immanent energy is wisdom. Because Ratzon higher than Seichel, Midas lower than Seichel are fundamentally not that structured. Midas can be tamed and directed and guided and trained to be disciplined. So Chacham is the fundamental. So we say Kutshabrichu. Taka Baraisa, Kutshabrichu, Atzma says, so the higher than Chacham looks into Torah, which is Chachma, the Torah is the Pnimi, which essentially guides it. Think of it like those infinite spheres being guided through the 10. Then he continued with the Medrash Bereshis Rabbah, that when Rav Meir asks, God who is not limited to the heavens and earth, he fills all of heaven and earth, and how he's going to fit into between the two staves, is the word we've been using, or the rods, or the poles of the Adam, and he answers with the martial example of the mirrors, which I didn't look up. The bottom line is that the same image, here you see it large, here you see it small. Same thing. So the same thing. When the Eibishter wants, he fills up heaven and earth, a full expanse. And when he wants, he speaks to Moshe through the two stages.
It's not him, it's a reflection.
They're both reflections. It doesn't say reflection, not reflection. He just says the same thing is there. In the Mashal, yeah, they're both reflections. And now he explains why. Because now he goes back to Chochmah. Because Chochmah is a Keli B'Rein, so Chochmah is fundamentally bittul. Hanochas atzmus. That's the primary. V'nochanu ma. Moshe said. It doesn't have any substance. And that's why it's a keli, it's a container for the Shekhinah. So therefore, Chachma becomes this container, so to speak, the mirror that allows the divine presence, which can be totally expansive. But remember, the Aron, the body of Aron, are the staves around the Aron. The Aron is Chachma, the Aron is Torah.
Could it be the eyes that he's reflecting to? Because when you get an image, a big image.
Not here, Maris are not eyes. Maris are mirrors, reflectors. Everything could be, but that's not what it says in Medrash.
No, but
why would you?
No, because
want to change the Medrash?
No, the big is something you're looking at. It still comes down to.
But the Medrash says Maris.
Yeah, I'm not saying it.
Give me another example.
No, but I'm just saying that we can understand how maybe the mirror is similar. Like an eye takes a grandiose scheme, whatever you're looking at, big thing, and just brings it down to a little thing. It still maintains everything, but it's still in there. So we can understand how somehow it's possible to admire.
That helps you. It helps you.
Yeah,
it doesn't bring it. I mean, I don't know if that. The example of let's say the sun reflecting an entire ocean, the sun reflecting
that's great.
in a bead of
that was
water.
To me.
It works very, very directly.
If I didn't seem to be fine for the class, though, that's what I was thinking of the other day, yesterday.
This example?
Yeah.
The eyes are better.
I thought maybe it's.
I don't know. It's very vivid to me. That's very clear. You see it.
With a drop of water, the way it was fine for me, but I was responding to what the comments were the other day, yesterday.
He's trying to move from the mashal that's only a reflection of Hashem that's there between the.
No, the same. There's a question. The Medrash is an answer to a question from a mayor. The mayor says God is this, and or is it, how does he fit it here? So he says it's like there's mirrors. You can have the same entity. One place when he wants it to expand it all the way. Another place, the same image is in a narrow place.
Like you said yesterday, that doesn't change the answer. The person is not being changed by the mirrors.
Forget about what I said. What it says here. I know maybe you misunderstood what I said. I mean, it's not relevant, but it's being. Yes, it's the same. He says it. He says like this.
Yeah, that's very much. The person himself doesn't change it. It's very good.
The entity, whatever it is. So the same thing appears here in large, and here appears here in small.
Right. So it's not that the entity shrunk or became bigger. It's the entity remained the same. Nothing happened to the entity. It's just the way it's reflected.
Whether it's reflected in the whole expanse of heaven and earth. Yeah, so, but the focus is not reflection. There's no word reflection. He's not talking about it. He doesn't use the expression reflection. That's not his point here.
That's the image.
Who cares? That's irrelevant.
It's part of the mashal. Is it the person that's
not the discussion. No one asked about the person. It wasn't even in the question.
The person, the entity that's looking at
the question was the same entity that filled all of it is filling. So he's giving the example of the Maris.
He's beyond space.
Let's put it this way, there's no emphasis on reflection or not reflection here. I don't see any emphasis on it. You want to use that to explain it, fine, but it doesn't mention it here.
I think it's a very key part of the mashal.
I don't think it's relevant, frankly. But
I don't think it's integral to the whole mashal.
Then why doesn't he say it?
That is the mashal. That's
just like fine. It's integral to you. I don't see any connection here, whether reflection or not. It doesn't make a difference.
The entity that's being
the question was not about reflection, not reflection. The question was what space it occupies. Who cares if it's a reflection or not a reflection? But either way, by the way, the large mirror or the small mirror, they're both reflections. So what difference?
Yeah.
So what difference does it make? Why is reflection an issue here?
Reflection is the image that appears in the mirror. Is that what we're talking about?
Who cares whether it's a reflection or the thing itself? It doesn't make a difference.
Because the thing itself didn't change. That's
so what?
So the thing remains the same.
So one second, the thing itself is large and it just fits into a small thing. That's what you think he's saying. Remember, the large is also a reflection. Anyway, not sure what just read. I mean, it's the Medrash. The Medrash does not come to say it's a reflection. That's why it is. The Medrash is simply saying they're both reflections. The Medrash is giving an example of something that can, in one place, occupy a whole thing, and in another, the same thing can occupy a less thing. If it helps you to understand it because it's a reflection, not the thing itself, fine. The reason
I think it's not what the Rebbe is trying to tell him that Hashem doesn't change the same. And it's just that Allah of himself is.
That's very nice. No one said the word Allah doesn't use it.
Right. But he's saying that he's.
If you're saying such a ikr, why didn't you just say that?
He's saying that Kaddish Baruch Hu comes from himself being Badi Haran. Is that what he's saying? Or is he saying he's really a
Both are reflections. We're talking about
That's not
You say Atmos at all.
No, it's not an octopus. It has to be something coming out, like an octopus. It could be an octopus, but it can't be it's not octopus. It's always something. I assume it's something that moves.
I have no problem to say that is a reflection, because that happens to be the case in the motion. I don't know, however, if that's the key here, the focus, that's all I'm saying. What? No, if it helps you, it helps. I don't see the focus and the emphasis on it. That's when I look at it.
It's the exact same madrigal. In other words, that person, the entity
If
doesn't
it helps you, gesundheit. I'm telling you, I'm telling me, it doesn't make a difference. Other than that, who really cares? Well, how's it difficult? The whole point is this. He's talking about the same entity that can be seen in small, that can be seen in large. He can fit in any way he wants.
We see. That's a key word.
As opposed to
that it's
we know what had to happen in talking about the thing itself. We're talking about when we say God fills heaven and earth. He could have answered a very simple answer. What do you mean God fills heaven and earth? God doesn't fill heaven and earth. He's beyond filling anything. He could have answered that. Well, you have to go together with Mishal. Could have said Atmos is beyond space. So who cares if it's by Atmos? Well, heaven and earth is closer than a drop. He could answer that. He didn't answer that. So to me, that wasn't even a consideration. That issue.
That's implied.
That would have been a different answer. That would have been. You think Atmos fits in heaven and earth? Heaven and earth is also limited. And believe Gvul, God Gvul, all Gvuls. He doesn't say that. That would be a different answer. He's saying a different answer. In other words, we all know that we're talking about a manifestation. The question is, this manifestation that fills so much, how does it do this? This is an example. Anyway. That's exactly what he wants. Because again, if it's not the same level, then the question is also not answered. And he should have answered. We're talking about two levels of God. In heaven and earth, it's one level. And by the Aron, it's a different. And if the Aron is Chachmas, the Chachma is now the Caliph. Now, from here we went to a discussion which we're in the middle of. How Ein Sof manifests a Chachma? That's the next question. How does Ein Sof manifest a Chachma? Umasha Nikra b'Shem Hashra. So I'll start from there because there's comes a long parenthesis. Umasha Nikra b'Shem Hashra. We call it Hashra. Shchinta Sharia. The parenthesis. Shchinta Sharia al Reisha. Chacham and Bereisha. Where else does he use the word Hashra? How do we know it's called Hashra? I know that, but where's the Makkah that is Hashra? The only Zayah is the only place. It's Shchinta Sharia. When you medayik Hashra means that there's a source for it. Okay, the Zayah is good enough. So we call Hashra, which we said means to dwell. Hashra is an interesting word. You say Hashra is Hashchina. Hashra is not a slapshus. A slapshus is when something encloses itself. Hashra means it's resting there, but it's not enclosed. Almost like a hovering element. Matter of fact, we say, for example, in Tanya, he brings the end of Perik Yud 11. Speaks about Tzaddik, Rosh Virale. So Rosh Virale, as we said, has nothing taped up, not any good. He said, and that's why we say, Akol Be'asor Shchinta Sharia. He brings a proof because even 10 Rishon Gemurim are also Minyan. And the Shchinta Sharia, the Kol Be'asor, whenever it's 10, but Sharia, it's not enters there. It's the proof she's putting with Maki. And also later in the Gersa Kedesh, when they burned the Tzavos HaRavosh. They burned it because they said it was kefillah. Why? Alter Rebbe brings in the Simon Chov Hey that they understood the Hashem was saying that Klippa, that the Kedusha is inside of Klippa. That's what the Alter Rebbe said. That the Hashem spoke in Yiddish. He couldn't have said that this that he said probably said that Harvard's, which is more Sheda, not Slavish. They misunderstood it, so basically there's a misunderstanding based on the difference between Slavish and Sheda. So Sheda definitely is dwelling, because we say Shachros Ashchina, we say Shachanti B'Seicham, Shechina, Shachanti, to rest among you. And so he's going to explain that there's a diuk in this word Sharia.
So actually, Shechina, Shechina, Slavishes. There it says.
You think it's different than Sharia? That's the point. That's the
But
point.
Sharia doesn't mean that it has to be. He said it could be the hell. In other words, it could be.
Right.
Like in Klippus, it's not. It's Sheda, it's not in the Eizim Slav
Meaning where Shechina doesn't automatically imply Sheda.
No, in Mechanami, I was just giving an example. Hashras Shechina in the Mishkan, in Mechanami, the Mishkan is way for no Slav. Yeah. So he says, what's the diuk Sharia? מה שנקרא בשם אשרו, שיוכל ישיר בבחינת הלם נפקא. Because it could be that it should rest there, dwell there, also in a concealed state. Also, it doesn't say it has to be. The Inyan HaYislapshus Ushameh Begili Mamash. Slapshus, when you say something in Islamish, means it's enclosed, gets dressed up in it. That's a state of total Gili Mamash. Well, can we Slapshus say this Bekel? When we say that energy is manifest in the containers, Usha'er Meir Begili Mamash Bekel, that's what it means. What does it mean that it manifests in the container? It's not a physical thing. It means that it's completely integrated. In a revealed way, which means that the keli, the energy, is comprehended and then understood and appreciated. Contrast, Hashra, Shesheda Shama'eh Behel. Shura is not Islapshus. There, the energy rests, dwells in a concealed state. Like you said before, it could be in a concealed state. Now comes the parentheses, two parentheses. Rak, Shabi Islapshus Ha'ev, L'bchinas Tzimtzum Amiyat. Now he's qualifying this distinction. Before we continue, let me just speculate why I think he's going into this. What you could say, why is it relevant here? This whole Hashra thing. Is it parenthetical? I don't think so. Because remember, we're talking about interface. We're trying to establish that Torah is an interface, like Atzilus is. And that Gufa Chachma is an interface. When you have an interface, so Chachma is the interface that you have, the Lukus that's higher, like you said, Kutshebrichu, Istakel Bar Raisa, Bara Alma. So Raisa is the interface. Kutshebrichu looks into Torah, creates the blueprint. Torah is this in-between place. So Chachma is that. The question is, how does the Lukus of Kutshebrichu rest in Chachma? So if it's Begili Mamish, then one can ask, maybe Chachma then is not really a good interface because it's too revealed. Right. In saying it's Asherah, you're giving it's a little filter going on here. There's something that is shifting. Even though in the example with the mirrors, it's exactly the same image, nothing changed, as he said. But here with Hashrah, it appears that he's trying to show that there is it's not quite in its full intensity. So we're going to see in a moment where that goes. I'm just saying that seems to me why he's emphasizing it. So he says, Gambi Slapshus just, sorry. In other words, he's saying the distinction I just made is not pshat that in the Slapshus everything is great, meaning you have the whole thing revealed. In Slapshus too, there's something compromised.
Sure, the original.
Because it's in a state of concealment and diminishment, and that's why it's revealed. It's not the air in its full intensity. So, if you said, for example, Hashra, it's not integrated, it's not revealed. Slapshus is totally revealed. So, initially you can appear that Slapshus is all the miles. It's the same thing, and revealed. He says, no, Slapshus too is a diminished state. So, in a way, Hashra is a mile, because it's not diminished. In other words, there's something you have to give to dress up in something. There has to be a diminished of it. Because for the earth to be revealed in the container, it's through it has to be commensurate to the container.
In terms of the
So therefore that compels it, there has to be And there is some form of diminishment, because it's like the teacher applying himself to the student. So the more he applies, great, it's a revealed, it's complete integration, but there's a diminishment. Now he's bringing Ha'ara. And in general, what does this diminishing mean? It means not a fundamental necessary diminishment it's less physically, quantitatively, that it's a state of Ha'ara, it's a reflection. No, it's not the energy the way it is in its full natural place, it's a reflection of the energy. So it's like a reflection of a reflection. That's what enters the container, and that's the slapshus. Now here's now the advantage of it. The energy that dwells, that's the actual energy the way it is, not a reflection. And in this there's a great advantage of dwelling over in clothing. Actually, for the interface, is the other way around. Hashra is better because you're getting more of Elokus. And so Chachma has more of Elokus than should, let's say, Bina have, because Bina is going to be more diminished, more in a Keli. Chachma doesn't have a Keli yet. Chachma is Bittul. It's just the concept, the spark, and the nucleus of the idea. So Chachma is a perfect Keli, is Bittul. Not Menach no Ma. It's Ma, it doesn't have substance. As such, Elokus there is not completely revealed, that's why it's Ashra. But on the other hand, you have the Mahus itself.
When you're saying Chachma, now you mean the Keli of
Chachma. We mean the Mahus of the Ha'ara, I have to say, because even in the Madas Udelis, it's also not the Etzem, but however, okay, fine. Whereas in Slapshus, you actually have a reflection.
And you're talking about the Keli of Chachma. It's so bittul that it can get...
I'm adding that because it doesn't say it specifically, but it's clear from the...
When you say Chachma in that case, you're talking about the Keli of Chachma. So it's so bittul that it could take the Hasra, and that becomes the Or.
There's no Keli, because there's really no Keli. There's no Gili Mamash here. Because Chachma is not really revealed. It's not really revealed there. Because Chachma is itself not yet a state of revelation. It's not Bina, but it's called.
So it's like a chunk of Elokus that's passing by unscathed.
It's like a seed.
Unscathed.
In a sense, like a seed. So it has it concentrated in there. Yeah. Now comes a parenthesis within a parenthesis, and both of them end together. That line, next line from this, one line from the bottom, just to place it. Okay, so we established in this parenthesis that Hashra has an advantage over Islapshus. And that's what Chachma has. Now he's qualifying in Islapshus itself. Yes, Gambe Islapshus, the Sheif in Islapshus should be as hell in the Gambe. Now he's adding another dimension. And also when it's enclosed, there's a way of enclothing. It's also complete concealment. Kama'in Hagolos. Like the Golos. Displacement. Exile. Oh, this is the Chafei that I was talking about. Yeah, Kamashikosav that gives the case of Sim Chafei. Like your right gives the case is 25. Da, Lahoven, Imre Bina, Lahoven, Imre Bina Savos Arivos, is that how it gets? Lahoven, Imre, I think so. Huh? I'm looking at the time in there. Okay. Lahoven, what's on that? What's that? You saw about something.
Oh, that's right.
Yes, I finished.
Okay. Lahoven, well, forget it. What was short? How it begins, the whole Gersh begins. So the Lahoven Ibn Savos Arivos Zal, like he says there right at the beginning, it wasn't really a tzavah. So literally, he says right there, it's not a tzavah. Tzavah means like the last will of testimony. It wasn't a tzavah, it was just the way they described it. It was the Moshe Rabbeinu. So he says like this.
Oh.
So he says,
Yeah.
Shazel Leirak She'er Misalim. That in Golis, it's not just that the energy was concealed. Kim Sheyesh Dover HaMailim. There's also something that's concealing it. Shamaylim Amastar Allah, that conceals and covers up over it. So he's bringing now a new type of Islam, a form of Islam that is actually completely concealed in dollars.
How's the rest?
It says elsewhere in Islam, it says elsewhere in the idea, he talks about the idea of the quote, Sheyesh HaMelubash Shelit. There's two scenarios when something dresses up in another. Who's in control? The garment or the one dressing up in the garment? So, when you talk about a malbish is the one dressing up. Let's say you putting on a shirt. Now, if the shirt is very dirty or very soiled, the shirt can reflect on you. That's when the lavush, so to speak, is dominant over the one who's dressing in the lavush. When you're wearing a garment that reflects you and what you want, then you are in control, and the garment is just a expression of yourself. Same thing with machshava dibra ma'aseh. Who's controlling what? As the seichel and the mid is controlling your thought, speech, and action, or your thought, speech, and action is controlling you. In other words, whatever comes to you, that's what you think or say, so on. So he says, you have the melubash shelet. The person who's getting dressed up is dominating, is controlling, governing it. That's the levels of kedusha. The melubash, he wears a garment. The garment is a revealer, not a concealer. Or better put, that it helps reveal him. Let's say you would put on Shabbos clothing. Shabbos clothing is not meant to be distracting or hijacking you. It's the contrary. The Shabbos clothing is supposed to be a levush noki. Ksus noki, the whole l'shem is there. They're supposed to be, you wear a garment that reflects on the kedushas of Shabbos, so it's reflecting a Talmud Chacham. It's supposed to wear levush Talmud Chacham. It's supposed to have certain garment that reflect who he is. So his garment is in kedusha. That's how it works. The garments are reflectors and are expressors of the thing dressing in that garment. There's sometimes the malbish. Malbish is the thing that's dressing. Melubish is we call here the subject, I guess, and malbish is the object.
Clothing.
Yeah. Shamalbish that the thing that's the malbish, the thing that's dressing you is dominant. That, of course, we learned earlier. This is what Gilgulim are. When the soul reincarnates. Remember, we learned it was at the bottom of the page. Ratzin, it was the place where Ratzin and Keiches. And Neshama, how Neshama manifests. He says there are times when Neshama will be sent into another body, like an animal. There, the Malbish controls the Lavush. In a human being, because the body of a human being is a container for the human soul.
It's tailored, exactly.
So it's tailored. So it does not a ghost. So the body is, unless we screw things up, but a body on its own is an expressor of your soul. So, for example, you have a mind. So the soul is able to learn Torah. In an animal, the soul can't learn Torah even if it wants to, because there's no kalim there. It would be like putting a human being in a sack. Who's in control in the sack? The sack is control, because it limits you, as opposed to allowing you to express. That's the worst example of a ghost. That's Melubash is the control. Malbish is the control is when it's, like you said, in Kedusha. It says, Ubeis in Yom, Ubeis min Yishlapshu Seil.
Malbish is the levush.
Malbish is the levush, and Melubash is the one that's dressed in the levush.
Right.
Yeah, I just said it.
So in the sack, who's in control?
Malbish.
The Zak is
How you put that way.
Not the Melubash.
Yeah.
Melubash and Malbish,
Yeah.
Ubeis min Yishlapshu Seil. These two types of so-called being enclosed, Yesh b'Yishlapshus HaNefesh Elokis b'Nefesh Bamis, exist in how the divine soul manifests in the animal soul. So there's two ways. Who's going to run the show? The Kasher Nefesh Elokis b'Yizgalus. When the divine soul is revealed, it rules and governs on the animal soul, and all the behavior of that person is through the nefesh elokis. It's the captain of the ship. When the animal soul is in control, is dominant, it governs and controls on the divine soul. that also the divine soul will follow it, will be drawn after it, be dragged, you could say. No, it's just like it's like schlepping the animal, the divine soul with it. It's interesting the difference. Here he says, he says, it's known with the sichus hareya. These are the blemishes. The sichus are the sichus in the lung. When we talk about kashrus and animals, sichus are the essentially scars.
There's grands that are connected from the lung.
So the scars.
Sometimes they get attached to the wall.
So sichus hareya, shareya nisleches v'nidbekes. So what's a sicha? A sicha is like what they call adhesions, I believe. Adhesions. So, like for example, when a person, God forbid, there's a surgery or something, there's scar tissue. Scar tissue sometimes feels that everything's fine, but scar tissue could also start growing, attaching things that shouldn't be attached, causes pain, causes even death in some cases. So the sichus of the reya, of the lungs of this, he says like this. So reya nisleches. Nisleches means like with nidbekes, it's like adheres, not adheres. Yeah, adheres, that's the right word. Adheres v'nidbekes and attaches itself. The hainu shaha'odas nefesh l'gis nimshach v'nidbek acher nefesh habamis. In other words, if the lungs are healthy, there's none of that adhesions. So it's doing what it's doing. But once it's adhesive, it basically strangles. It starts like tentacles, starts controlling the nefesh l'gis. So that's what a ruchni sichas hareya is. That means that the reflection of the animals, that the divine soul, nimshach, is drawn to v'nitbuk and is attached to nitbuk acher that follows after the animal soul.
Isn't it true?
So we have now a slapshus that's already now. We began. Then slapshus is gili mamash, and hashra can be concealed. Then he qualified that Islapshus is only a reflection, not the thing itself. I'll show you how the thing itself. Now he's going and showing that Islapshus actually has a problem. Islapshus can end up being to the point where it's so that it's a garment, that to the point where the garment is controlling that which is dressed up in it. That's what he says. And Ba'ashra lo yeshin yikazeh. Hashra, this cannot happen. Hashra, when something dwells in the form of Hashra, this can't happen because it doesn't get dressed in. The only place where a garment can begin to control that which is dressing is when it's dressed up in it. But if you don't dress up in the first place, you don't have this issue. Which is why Chochmah doesn't have the problem.
It's pristine all the time.
Because it's somewhat removed. Because it didn't become... Look, once you become a partner, Erev and Keli, it's a good... On one hand, it could be good. But on the other hand, the Keli can also start impacting the Erev. That's what's going on. So you have to know before you become a partner. You don't become a partner. So.
Like, you're not emotionally attached. You have to somewhat aloof from people. Like a shliach that he goes out, he has to be in that sense. He has to be a little bit aloof from the surroundings.
Isn't
or else it gets swallowed by his surroundings.
Isn't the divine soul inside the animal soul?
That's called revushim. Yeah, exactly right.
He uses it as.
So the question is,
he said follows. I mean, it's inside. Yeah, it's part of it.
I just gave an example. Yeah. Remember, did you hear the example I gave? Wear Shabbos clothes.
Right.
Or you wear clothes that are dirty and soiled. Okay. So yeah, the soul can suddenly be affected. The animal soul can draw. It's like the clothing can suddenly control the thing that's dressed up.
The animal soul, the clothing, and the.
Yeah, remember, it's not inanimate clothing here. The Nefesh Habamis has a life of its own.
Right.
So it's not purely obviously, it would be a nice science fiction movie to be able to make a garment that you put on. The garment suddenly starts taking control of your life. But it's true. The way you dress can do that.
It's true. Little kids put on Superman clothing, they feel like they can throw out the window. The kids that put on Spider-Man clothing, they feel like they're Spider-Man.
That's why we wear white shirts and black pants, because you have to look like waiters, like they're completely bizzled.
Okay. Now he goes further. So Hashra, you don't have this issue. But now he's going deeper. And this too, this distinction between Hashra, dwelling, and Slapshus in clothing is also because of the difference we mentioned earlier. Because dressing up in clothing isn't energy the way it's only a reflection, and comes in a diminished state. Why is it possible? How is it possible that a garment should suddenly control? It's because the energy itself is not the core energy. It's a reflection and it's diminished, so it's in the stage vulnerable, essentially. So that's why in its lowest levels there can be such disruptions that suddenly it was subject to, in other words, to diminishment, so it's weaker. Like those adhesions of the lung, those adhesions are only shaykh in Aveda, in lower souls. Because they're in a state of gasus haruach. If you hear the expression gasus haruach means someone whose spirit is very grow. Now, you say gasus haruach is like a person who just is lost from zich, but also gasus haruach was also seen a person who's like a grub mensch.
Even through Muslims.
Yeah, but that's arrogant.
But that's exactly Patrick gasus haruach in Yiddish. I don't know, I'm just in English.
Well, in Chassidish language, gasus haruach is more than just lost from zich. Gasus haruach, not only types is a grub mensch. It's part of that. Gas means actually thick. You know, gadak is edel, is
thick spirit.
And gas is grubba.
Thick spirit.
A thick spirit, right? That's literally what it means. So, but it's saying here, gas haruach. That's someone, lower souls are in a state of gas haruach. They have like a thick spirit. Sharuchnish lan b'chinas gasus. That's how it's actually ruach. Ruchnis, gas ruach. The ruchni is by them, even their spirituality is in the form of thick skins, whatever.
Yes.
That's the type of gas ruach. See, ruach usually is like the way you're saying, like ruach is the spirit, the ego. Gas ruach, yeah. Gas ruach.
Yes,
The ruach is a form of gasus. Hold on. That's why. Like it says, in the Maimon Mikhail Kamecha. That is, and there by them is capable sirchus, because the energy is diminished in the Behelim and Bestapshus. That's why they can have the adhesions that we discussed with the Nefesh Habami. The animal soul can take control over the divine soul. Well, Kamoi came.
It's instead of stuck in there because of the adhesions, it can't maneuver out or something.
Right.
Okay.
It's stranded. It gets
It's stuck.
It's strangled like tentacles. Yeah. It's like, talk about spider web. Like a spider web. You start getting, the more you you keep getting stuck in it. It's stepping above all that.
Mash was also about the wolf and the sheep that gets caught in the thicket, and the thorns.
Yeah.
The trees, and it gets caught to it. Yeah.
Well, Kamoikin Lamaila, the same thing is above. This is not very good. Slapshas Hanal, Shaikba, Oda, Habab, Chinsmir, Vitsin, Subiyes. The Madrig is at the things. Slapshas Hanal, when it manifests in a clothed way, that it should cause such a type of concealment is only the reflection which comes in a diminished and increasingly concealed state in the lowest levels. V'ashra, the issues of the Etzamed, Hashra, because it's the core energy, Kamoshahu, as it is, like he said with the Maris Gdel, it's the exact same image. That's why by Ashra you cannot have, it's not possible, this type of enclosement that should cause ghosts.
That's why we're showing you get a wake up call once in a while.
Why is that the same against occasions that Eclipse is in the form of Ashra?
Because it has to be there, so they get a wake up call once in a while. And
that's not the point I want to make. That's why it's called Ashra, because it doesn't go into Pneumias and Lucians. I have to look it up, okay. Now we go back to before the parentheses.
It's the start of line before the parentheses.
Okay. So, but he says almost the same thing here. He does connect it right away. So the bottom line is like this. He's explaining why by Chachma we say Hashra, not Eslapshus. So it's only because there the energy can be concealed. And also here the other parentheses said, Ein Shef Eslapshus. Now continue, okay, so by Behel. Hashra sheyachal liyashen amer begili kanal. Now we qualify. This doesn't mean it has to be concealed. It's only that Hashra in the dwelling, it could be that it should not be revealed, as we mentioned before. Benida, in the Rabbi Rashab Zan, Benida means it appears, or he doesn't say Nida Li, but this idea is Nida means sometimes it appears to me.
Seems or something.
It seems. Benida is an expression I feel, or my opinion. Not like it doesn't say it specifically. Benida. There's mash. There's like that's it. That this. You could say it appears. It's basically it's his explanation. It's his understanding of it. She'ein zeh sha'er v'u'chinas makif levad. Clearly, he's explaining a piece here that must be written by another man. When he says Benida, he wouldn't be saying it on his own words. You don't say something and say, I think I mean so and so. It's usually, he's probably referring to it. I don't think so. I don't know if it's a Gezekers. I don't think so. I think it's more on the idea of Chochmah, Shura. I have to look it up. It doesn't matter. But bottom line is he's saying that it appears that we're not talking about Erev that's in the state of Makif alone.
That's Hashra.
That Shura is not that. No, they could say, very simple. Hashra is Makif, and the Slapshus is Pnimi. But then we have a problem. Then you can't go back and say Chochmah is Pnimi, because then you don't have the Mutzah back to the square one. So in other words, he's trying to show that Hashra is Pnimi, but in Pnimi, it's a step removed. That's what he looks like he's saying. The important point. Kim Shanimsa B'chinas Pnimis. It's found in an integrated, it's an internalized. So he's making a distinction between Helam, Gili, Makif, and Pnimi. So Makif is always concealed. Pnimi, he's saying, could be concealed, can be revealed. So the mere fact that Hashra is not revealed, don't think it means it's fundamentally not revealed. It just happens to be that it could be also concealed. Like he gave this whole example. So notice Hashra has an advantage over Slapshus is always revealed. But it's so revealed that it requires that it be diminished, and therefore a result that it can only be a reflection to the point that it can actually be hijacked.
It's reviewed.
That's the Slapshus.
But that's review. I mean, Nefesh of Kis is one of the Nefesh comments that shows it on it. It's so complicated.
Well, it began that way. The Nefesh of Kis applied itself. The Nefesh of Kis remained Hashra, and when not engaged, it couldn't be done. It couldn't be taken. It couldn't be hijacked. To be taken hostage, you have to enter there. Nefesh Elokis enters all the way. He said, "Slapshus Nefesh Abamis." There's two ways. Then things happen. If the soul did not, if the Nefesh Elokis was not mislavish and remained shroshra, the Nefesh Abamis could never affect it. Really, that's what it's saying. So it has to enter. It's like total engagement. That's what it means. In that engagement, what can happen is it can get messed up. Yeah, it can get messed up to the point that it gets completely concealed. That's what he said. Yes, Slapshus is completely concealed. They said the reason for that is because it went in to be mislavish in a positive way, and then it got stuck, so to speak. With Hashra, you can't get stuck because you don't go in all the way. Listen, you need both. The whole point of the interface is you want to go mislapshus and still retain the Hashra to be able to get out. Remember, he doesn't talk what happens once the Nefesh Abamis, once Nefesh gets trapped, now what? How do you get rid of the adhesions? There has to be a way out.
That's what we learned that a big chunk of the Nefesh Elokis doesn't even go into the.
Correct.
So it stops them out.
Because there's a part that Hashra is there.
It stays out.
Exactly. He doesn't say this here, but it's clearly that case.
It will be the whole Nefesh Elokis will be totally trapped and they'll be able to get out.
Ah.
Yeah.
Never did that.
But then you have all the advantages. You have Eretz B'Kelim, so there's total integration. You have something above that still reminds you.
A sexy valve.
It's similar to what we learned earlier, that the Eretz has to retain its personality of Eretz even as it enters the Keli, or else it can be trouble.
Give them much of the divers. They're connected with the strings.
Yeah,
so you
yeah,
can
yeah.
only get
Right. So somebody has car
You
rest.
always get pulled out.
And you can't get pulled out of it because you're not going to do all those strings unless you do something.
Remember, there was a whole piece we learned, if you remember.
That's what it says in the Tanya about the chords.
Remember, there was a whole piece where we spoke about Eretz and Kelim, with a piece with. No. A piece about where he puts on Levush Eir Kasalma. So there's a whole piece there that when you're that the Eir Neshama has to remain outside, it has to always be Hipach HaTeva that it's going in, or else it could lose its sanity.
It could be too big.
Yeah, right. So Okay, but this is what, so she says, the Ashra is neither, it's not alone, it's not makif. In a pnimi, but it's not in the form of gili.
When they burnt the Sforim, what was the problem at that point?
Who burns for?
You just mentioned that they burnt the Sforim with the bottle, the bash.
They misunderstood what he wrote. It's not relevant to that discussion. And after that, look in Simcha Chafei, there's the case. After that explains. He misunderstood what the Baal Shem Tov said. He thought that Baal Shem Tov was saying that in evil, in Klippa, you have complete divine enclothement. He says it wasn't enclothement, you have to say it's removed. The one we just referred to, Chafei. Well, Peter's Inyan She'en B'chinas Gili, an explanation and the Inyan of something that's not revealed. Ein Zashenim is Gala Klal. You say something not revealed doesn't mean they're all not revealed. It's not an absolute. When you say something not revealed, that's when there's no keli. You have no container for the energy, then you could say that the energy has no place, is not revealed at all. The kan hare adra. But here, hare adra, on the contrary, yesh keli or habikl. There's a container for there. However, and that container is bittul. By Chachma we're talking. So you can't say there's no keli. V'hainu masha ahead of hakli, hu hakli. Yeah, the parentheses. In other words, the lack of a keli, that's the keli. So you have three levels. You have a keli mamish, a substantial keli. So there, slapshus, the air has to be concealed. I'm sorry, the air has to be only a reflection of the minish. That's why it can enter the container. And it could also be trapped by the container. In Chachma, you also have a keli, but the keli itself is lack of keli. So there's substance. But the substance is the opposite of keli. And therefore there's a revelation there. And then you have a state where there's nothing at all. There's no keli at all. There's not even the bittul. Very good. So that when we talk about Chachma and Bina, for example, why can a person who's in deep comprehension of Bina and all the details get lost? You can lose the sight of the point. Derech HaKosten is used the expression. You can wander off because it's very common. A person starts talking, they lose sight of the original point of departure, and you're off in Chvezru.
So we have to write it down before it.
Right. Why? Because Bina has real kelim, and it's no longer bittul. Bina is actually, the whole point of Bina is to flesh it out. So the kelim can take you on a trip.
All people.
Yeah, hijacked, exactly like he says. The lavush becomes more powerful than the malbush. Where in Chachma, it's the opposite. In Chachma, the keli is very diminished. It's basically bittul. It's only interested in the idea, the concept, and therefore the emes is there. But it's already a keli. The idea has been conceived. A seed has been planted. You cannot say there's no seed. And then, of course, Kesed, higher than Ratzon, will be no seed at all. So that would be makif and fundamentally concealed because there's no keli. Very interesting little addition here, huh? See, the interface, there's so many pieces in this whole picture. Wow.
But even the Gashmas you can find bottom shop for it.
A seed is an example.
No, but the radio waves, it's totally concealed unless you have a keli for it, unless you have a radio, which basically waves.
Okay, but you want an example of something that the keli is not a keli. Like maybe, like a read over radio waves, maybe, when you just get a signal, you can't really hear a sound, you can get a signal, there's something's nitfus. Yeah. Because that's sometimes what you want. You want to get the signal, then you amplify the signal. Yeah. So now he's going back. So rather the intention here with this is She'enim B'chinas Gila and She'enim is Gala Mamish Lis Musa Mamish. That's not makif and concealed, because on the contrary, like he just said, there is a keli. And therefore there is revelation. The kavanah is that's not a state of Gila, it's not mamish, revealed in a way that you can comprehend it. That's what lack of revelation means with Hashra. So Chochmah is revelation, but it's a revelation that cannot fully be controlled by you or understood by you.
You sense it, but you can't grasp it.
Yeah, like he writes in Tanya chapter 35, about the dwelling of the Shekhinah, of the divine presence. The kasher bottle b'mitzias, and when he's bottle b'mitzias, when he's completely subjugated, has nullified his existence as being, ozu shesherim is galaboy Hashem echad. That's when Hashem echad dwells, rests, while Shedem is God and revealed in him the oneness, divine unity, or the God that is one. Haridashro Gamkin is Galus. She's bringing there proof from Tanya. So it says Shedem is God, but it doesn't just say. That means Ashra is also revelation. Rakshe'enim is Galus Man, Rakshe'enim is Galus Man, it becomes Gilead Mohus. However, it's not total revelation, Gilead Mohus, as if you see the personality of the entity itself.
That's not
It's more like
Hasra
Gilead
anymore.
Metzias, huh?
Is that at that point? Is that point? It's not Hasra anymore. You went into a very bittul keli.
That's called Hashra.
At that point, when it goes into a keli, it's not called Hasra. I don't think.
No, that's opposite what he's saying. Because it's a keli that's not a keli.
I'm not talking about Chachma. I'm talking about.
Talk about Chachma.
Chachma.
Hashra is only a Chachma. We don't speak about Hashra elsewhere. The whole point began.
I was thinking about.
Why do we call?
I understand.
No, we're not talking about Golos. No, he's run away from that a long time ago. Golos is not called Hashra. Golos is called the slapshus, but in the form that the garment is in control over the thing that's dressed up. That's why you can have Golos. You basically have, if you want to really put it, 4 levels. You have a concealment, fundamental concealment, because it's makif and beyond. So it doesn't reveal, it's no kelim. You have the other extreme, concealment like in Golos, because the contrary, it's so immersed that it was taken control by taken hostage. Then you have Islapshus where the nefesh kiss is dominating, but it's in a revealed state. Then you have Hashra, where it's already pnimi, but it's still not fully revealed because it's bittul. The keli is there, but it's not you can't call it dressed up. That's why it's not really revealed in a comprehensible way. It's
Between in next between in next language.
is the 4th level. Slapshus and Golos.
This level we call Hashem Echad.
We don't have to fit all the levels in, but that's, he said clearly that's Golos. He didn't talk about the Shekhinah necessarily, but it means all levels of Golos, yeah. Well. Okay. Had Ashra, there's the same stuff because Gilead was. The Masha'omer Sheshedu is Gala Hashem Echad, what it says in Tanya, that Sheshedu dwells and is revealed, Hashem Echad, Ena Kavod Hashem is Gala Ben Bus Adov Mamash. The intention in Tanya is not that it revealed in them through their vittul, the Messias revealed them the Mahus Adov Mamash. Literally, the personality of the thing, of the divine itself. Sharigama Yedei HaMitzvos Hamshach B'chinas Makif. Because also through mitzvahs you have the transmission of form of makif.
Adach mitzvahs, which is
Makif.
which is what I'm saying. It's only because makif, it's even more ethereal. About like this, when you have
No, I think it's the opposite way. It's the same. I think it's the opposite.
Only by mitzvahs you get to
Hold on,
Mahus, he's
hold on.
saying.
Mashamash Hashem is not good. He's comparing it there in Tanya. He's talking about the mitzvahs and the Aveda of the Messias. The mitzvahs.
You get the Mahus.
What's it? Mitzvah. Maybe you're right. I'm not positive, but maybe you're right. That even mitzvahs where you have the Musadavar Mamish, it's only in the form of Makif. So for sure this, that's revealed, which isn't as high as mitzvahs, it's also not Musadavar Mamish. Probably that's right. And then look at Perek above. You have to look in Tanya there. Tanya probably talks about this whole thing. Okay, fine. Ki im asher yedu margish mesayichud Hashem achad. Kavan and Tanya, the intention of Tanya is we understand, yedim, we know, margishim, we sense the unity of God's, of Hashem achad. God is one. So that yes, but Mahus Hadavar Mamash no. What's he proving from the Tanya? That Hashras Hashkin is revelation, but it's not revelation in its entirety. So it's an example of Hashra. That's a perfect example. It's not Machiv, which is complete concealment. It's not Islapsus all the way, which would mean that you completely own it, so to speak. It's revealed, but it's not Gilya Mukus. Shekenu gam b'neshamas hagvein. Sheyochem dichutze. Now, this isn't just for low souls. Even this is also the way by high souls, great souls, that are sheyochem, that have a relationship, that are connected, that have that are possible, that have the possibility of experiencing such a unity. They know and they comprehend and they sense in their souls this level of divine unity. And nevertheless, it's not the core personality of the Indians revealed by them.
It's not in Metzius.
What he's saying is like the Chochmah is this like very slippery slope, so to speak. It's a very thin line. Revelation is there, but it's not total. And that's the key. The key thing is to keep that in mind. That is a type of, that's the Hashra. That's why he's emphasizing Hashra. It's very clear that he's speaking here if you see the delicate balance of an interface. He doesn't want too much revelation. He doesn't want no revelation at all. He wants something that's right in between. Now he has in parentheses. In general, you have to distinguish here between seeing something physically with your eye or seeing something with the eyes of your mind. Remember, I'm going back to Chacham Eino Bereishim. I think that's a very vital point. The Zohar, that's where it all started. What did the Zohar say? Chacham Eino Bereishim. The wise person's eyes are in his head, in his mind. Shkinta Shari Al Reishim. That means the Shekhinah rests on his head. So Shari, it's there, the Chachmah, but it's not complete revelation. Chacham Eino Bereishim, as the Ramah says. It sounds very similar. That's what he's. Now he says you have to distinguish between seeing with your eye and seeing with the eye of the seichel. That's what I know Chacham Bereishim. Chacham Eino Bereishim. Then is galus esemus adavar mamash uberiyas eye. Because now the revelation of something, the core personality of something, is when you look with your eyes. As will be in the future. God's glory will be revealed, and Kol Basar will see it. The Rebbe emphasizes very many times. Doesn't say Kol Eimei Basar. Doesn't say the eyes of the flesh will see it.
Wow.
Flesh itself will see. Wow. So that's V'yah Mamish.
Yeah.
It's clearly touching that.
That's the word basar.
Or else because of Kol Basar. It doesn't say
third
Eimei.
level.
Doesn't say
Third
Eimei.
level. The seeing with your eyes, seeing with your mind, and actually seeing with.
And not seeing at all.
And that's fourth level. And seeing with your basar.
Spelling
More cooler.
Let's read it, and then we'll argue about it. Now, Sheikh, but he's saying Asechel. Contrast, when you look with the Ein Asechel, means you're looking with the wisdom of intelligence, that your mind sees. With the Ein Asechel, the belief is Chazakula. Sheikh, but he's saying Asechel, the Ein Asechel, the belief is Chazakula. Ein Asechel, the belief, that's his perspective, is Chazakula. That with the eye of the mind that is in the heart, he sees everything. It's an expression that looks to me from Zohar, probably. I don't think it's a lot, maybe. Well, definitely an expression. Believe it's Chazakula, sees it all. Okay. Even though this is a very exalted and elevated level, lofty level, this is not seeing the core essence of personality itself. And that's why there are different levels in the levels of seeing. Because that's because it's not the core itself. How could it be level? Either you saw it or you didn't see it. You saw the table, you didn't see the table. To say there are levels in how a person sees, you have to say in Seichel that it's not mamish the thing. That's why there's levels of how much you're seeing. Like it says elsewhere. In the future, when there'll be the seeing with the eye, So that's maybe even a stronger like that. See eye to eye. It says that all will know him and me, without any distinction of levels.
That's in the kind of my brother.
I know. So the Rebbe, actually the Rebbe Rav David, I've heard it here once. Rav David and the Rebbe explained, it's not a student. Even the time of Avdelim means even though everyone will still be in their level, they'll all see equal. And that's how he's touching here. And we can say that in the future there'll be a little bit be'emes in truth, mamish islapshus. So that will be the best of all worlds. You'll physically see. We'll see with our eyes, mamish, the core, in a form of islapshus. Like we said before, today there's gradations. If it's islapshus, it's going to be subject to diminishing and can be trapped. Well, when you get refined enough, in the Keli you'll be able to have what we have today with Asherah and even higher.
But the eyes,
The Gili Mamish.
yeah, that must be it.
No, when is those?
No, but
Okay, so one second. We're looking here Pshat. I need to understand Pshat first. What did he add the parentheses? One second. What he added the parentheses is, he's saying that even high neshamas have a Gili, but they don't have Gili Hussein.
only was
It's
Hold
my,
on. So barring loss of love, not talking the future now, where everything changes. So you have people, even high souls, that can see something, but it's still not the core itself.
it's
That's
inside.
very clear. It's like with their minds. They see with their minds. That's what the parentheses added, that is explaining, that even those high souls see with their minds, and it's not, you can't say it's exactly. Look, even by us, when we understand, see something with our minds, and all of us have, I'm sure, moments like that, it's still not the same level as seeing it literally, seeing it literally. There is one step below. Frankly, in some ways, it doesn't say it here, sometimes seeing with your mind can be far more resonating and truthful than seeing with your eyes. Seeing with your eyes, you could say, maybe I didn't see it right. Seeing with your mind is far more conviction involved, because you say, I got it. Sometimes you see something and you didn't get it, but there's an advantage of seeing something mamish. What is it? You're literally seeing the thing itself, not just the idea of it. So let's say, for example, let's say a tzaddik who absolutely knows and sees Mashiach is coming. Not even a question. In his mind, he knows the purpose of God's creation and he sees the world going there. But it's just not the same thing as if he's seeing a Beis HaMikdash literally. When you say Kishem Shebalir is Karbal Lirois. So even the Rebbe is seeing Geula, but he doesn't see it as if he was, what would happen if Mashiach actually came, there was a Beis HaMikdash and Gidei Elokus. So for him, he would see something even more. For us, we wish we could see just what he saw, I understand. But relative to Riyah Mamish, it's not. It's one step below. That's what he's essentially saying. Obviously for us, the Riyah Seichel of a person like that is like Riyah Mamish, if you know what I'm saying. Because it's so clear. But there's still something, even up here halacha, no, but you can't make a bracha, for example, Shechiyonu, or you make a bracha like, when you see certain things, let's say, you see Shana or you see,
It's a fruit. We say shakana first before we eat it. So I say
okay,
shakana
what's
first.
you can't, even a tzaddik who can envision it and knows it's there,
Can't make sure.
can't make a bracha until he actually sees it. Why not?
Good much.
He's completely sure, and he knows it absolutely because there's something about actual in front of your eyes, so to speak. You could say, what's vision? It's superficial. People see things all the time; they see nothing. And a tzaddik sees the real thing. What would you prefer? Someone who sees in the Beis HaMikdash and doesn't know what he's seeing, or a tzaddik who doesn't see the Beis HaMikdash but he knows what Beis HaMikdash really is? But fuck, you want really have even that tzaddik says, I want both. So the fact that some people are superficial and their vision is superficial doesn't mean that sight has no value. It just means they're superficial. But there's something to be said. That's why the Navi, what's the word I want to use? He not prides himself. He considered an accolade, an achievement that will be v'nigla koy davai and will actually see. Why do you have to actually see? Say Mashiach comes, we won't really care about the superficial world. We'll see alakus, beruchnis. Who says you have to see the gashmis? But because God created a physical eye, and the physical eye has value to see, We don't just want to say, well, you know what, I'm not going to look with my physical eyes because it's superficial and distracting. I only want to see with my seichel. God wants that even that, the truth of Ruchni, should also be seen with the physical eye.
I'm sorry.
So in other words, there's an advantage to something being seen with the physical eye. Maybe that's what the Rebbe meant when that beauty queen of Israel went by. The Rebbe said, Shekna Chaim behevel hayefi. So everyone interprets that meaning. Why? Because Yefi and Chaim is superficial. What matters? Yiras Hashem. Yish Yiras Hashem. The Rebbe said, no. Once you have the Yiras Hashem, you want it to come back to the world of Chaim and Yefi, which was physical. I'm not just talking about spiritual beauty, because then it wouldn't say Sheker if it wasn't spiritual. So when we say that the Imas, the matriarchs were Yefei Teya, Yefei Fas Mara, Yefei Teya, Fas Teya, Fas Mara, or we say Zekeli Vaveyu, when you make a mezuzah, a Sefer Torah, it should be beautiful. When you do something with Kedusha, but physically, like the Rambam says, at the end it says that everything in mitzvah should be done in Ayefi. But Cain and Hevel, that Hevel brought from the best, and Cain didn't. But everything always should be min Ayefi. When you bring something to Kedusha, bring it from the best, not from just the average. Why? Because the point is to permeate Chetzenius with Pnimius. So we want to have real Riyah in the fullest sense of the word. We want to see, however, not the superficial, but what's real. But what do we see today? Mahus we see Gashmis. Ruchnis we see with our Seichel. So good, for a person who has that Enya Seichel, for him it's more real than Gashmis. What we want to have is, like the Barditchever said, show us Ruchnis Begashmis and write about the Gashmis and Sfarim. Let the Gashmis be a story, and let Ruchnis be what we see. And also, though, you'll have the best of both worlds. But for the interface to work, you have to, remember the whole point of existence is that we don't see first. First we see Gashmis. Then we find ourselves to see more. So he's basically explaining that even the great Tzaddik, even the highest Neshamas, also have these levels, relatively speaking. So there's a state where they see Mamish with their eyes, of the Seichel, but it's not the Riyas Mamish. Only see Mahus. L'asud love, you'll have the best of both worlds. That's very clear here. Very fundamental piece, actually. Every chapter is fundamental, what can I say? It just keeps on going, wow. So let's go back now to Hashra and Islapshus. So Hashra, that's what he says in Tanya Lamed A, Shosh Hashchina, there's the Gili. They have a Gili, but they don't have Gili Mahus. Even those high Neshamas. And the answer, and he explains that that's the difference in Seichel in this. So that's why it says by Chachma Hashra and not Slapshus. Because Chachma has Riyah, you see, but you don't see like what we would call seeing something physical. That type of reality is not there. I think this is connected to our previous chapter. You remember a chapter we spoke a lot about Riyah? Chachma as seeing, not just as a conviction, but seeing. I think this chapter, he's tying some knots that were left untied there. Because there, if you remember when we learned it, I know what chapter it was. Yeah, that was, I'm almost sure, because there were things there that left, that were not clear. I'll tell you where it is. It's two places. Where we talked, the first place where we talked about the Sos Abu Tfuna. And then he referred to earlier chapters. I remember very vividly. One second, I'll tell you exactly where it is. The Riyah was right here. Here's the Riyah was,
It's Abu Behima.
yeah, here we go. It's chapter Kufan Ches, 139, and it is referred back to
Just mentioned there, brother.
chapter 97. What's Yeah.
Yeah, it's on page Pezon.
Yeah, he referred to it. I'll tell you right away. No, I'm sorry. I say chapter 97?
Yeah.
Also chapter 42. Chapter 42 primarily.
Alright, so that wasn't,
41 and 42.
yeah, joined that afterwards.
This is Chachma and Bina. Chachma is Riyah and Bina is Shmiyah. That was it. I'm almost sure, I'm going to go back and learn it, but I'm almost sure that this is very, very, I can sense a very similar,
Yeah, but there's something still wrong answer there?
I think so. It was not clear at this point. Is Chachma like Riyah Mamish, or is it?
You got some Tanakh Sichlis that is.
Yeah, it was like this in-between place. I remember at the end of the chapter there. Hold on, the end of the chapter. Yeah, the end of chapter 40 actually. The bottom line was the difference in Riyah. Even before 42. It starts with 39, chapter 39, but then in chapter 40 primarily is a big section there. See, there it says, I remember there was somewhere a distinction between actual and anyway, gotta go back to it. So that's the story, my friends. So now let's go back.
That's 39.
So let's do a summary here. But bottom line, what we learned so far is that Teda, God is tackled by Raisa. Hey, is tackled also the. Just for the record. I don't know if it's connected. It's tackled. God looks into the Teda. He looks into Chach. I don't know if it's connected. It doesn't say it actually, but it's definitely interesting.
I don't know if he looks at the Chachma as Riyah.
No. He looks and he injects his Riyah.
So maybe that's it.
That's how.
He says Stakel Baras, he uses his Chachma.
He uses his by looking. He invests his Chachma into the Torah.
I wouldn't say that exactly, because Torah is Chachma. He's going into Chachma. He's going into the state of Riyah. Okay, but anyway, it doesn't say in the phrase. Let's see, maybe he will. So the bottom line is, what we learned is that Teda B'Mutzah. Teda B'Mutzah. Staka Barais is looking into
Takes it
Chachma.
from wave to particle and makes it specific by looking at it.
And it's a state of Chachma, but Chachma is in the form of Hashirah. Alien Sof is Msheda in Bit. That's the bottom line. That's the whole thing of Hashirah. Now, just we're going to get to Hashirah. There's the connection of Hashirah and Islam Shus. Difference. The Hashirah is where it's really beginning to manifest. Kids, being a Teda, what's been in the Shabbat Ilmas, now the Teda is an interface between the infinite divine light and the world. It's called Shabrich Staka Barais. God looks into the Teda. Kuchabrich Atzmus HaMaitzim. Kuchabrich is referring to the core of the emanator, source. Mislabish b'Teda b'chinis pnimi. Manifest, mislabish b'Teda in the form of internal, integrated. K'may ha'chachma shul er pnimi, like chachma which is er pnimi. Teda chachma nafkes, right? Well, the yesh ha'chachma b'chinis bitl, and it's so sheda b'chachma. So there's a connection. Why does he look at Teda? Why doesn't he look at something else? Because Teda is chachma. Chachma is the keli. Because it's chachma, it's instead of bitl, it's there in itself. So Teda, in other words, is God's looking to Teda's taka. He's focusing through Teda, but Teda is a keli is a appropriate channel where the in itself can dwell. This Hashra, the in itself rests in Chachma, is not the Muhusa Eir, it's not the core energy. Interesting. He didn't even say that inside, did he? Yeah, later, the end he said. Okay, when it's enclosed, it's understood and comprehended in the container. That's the state of reflection and diminishing. Hashra, the dwelling is that the core energy rests there. That's why in clothing there's a way that the malbish, the garment, the thing that's dressing him, that he's dressed in, dominates. But in contrast, Hashra doesn't have that issue. So he says Hashra she'ena musik musa ed. Then he says Hashra is shedisha.
The first thing it first says ena mahus. Yeah, that
No, it's not musik. It's not musik. It's not comprehended, the core. You you have it there, but it's not. He means Mammon. There he goes. So that means it comes in an imminent and integrated way, but the muhus is not, the core is not understood. It's there, but like the revelation of the oneness of Hashem, even to the high souls, great souls. You could say this level of Asherah, Chachma, is the state of Riyas Ein HaSeichel. It's how the eye of the mind sees. And the real revelation of Mahus, which we don't have, which even the high Neshamas don't have, that's the seeing of the eye itself. We will see eye to eye, we shall be seen.
How is that? That's right.
It's in Pei Klam and Tanya. What would be the difference? Is that
Being seen.
Being seen or foreseen?
We'll see.
We'll see eye to eye. We'll see eye to eye. Okay,
So they go.
so we finished chapter 162, pages 325 and 326.